Today's sponsor of the Vision Quest podcast is 920 Hat Company. Leather patch hats are in, and 920 Hat Company is here to hook you up with your very own custom hat. All patches are lasered on top-grade genuine leather and on popular brand hats like Richardson and FlexFit. Whether you're looking to show off your business or want a one-of-a-kind hat for yourself, 920 Hat Company can do it all. All the hats are handcrafted right in the Fox Valley, but worn across America. With over 500 hats in stock, they guarantee fast turnaround times. Honestly, Liam, looking at these hats, solid, right?
Yeah, they're pretty. I like them.
I like that patch itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one-of-a-kind stuff. I know his name's Trevor. He does great work. He's actually gotten I think we got a knit hat coming.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we got that coming. So we're really excited to have these guys on board as a sponsor. So get down to check them out on Facebook. I believe they're on Instagram. Check them out, man. They got the best hats, I think, in the Fox Valley, if not in the state.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So get down to 920 Hat Company on social media and check them out. Okay, we're good. We lost Jamie for a second there, so we're all good.
Yep. Or so like the other one that we help raise, he does better with just positive reinforcement.
Sure.
Criticism for him, he takes it real personal.
Yeah.
And so he just works better when you keep him and so we tried to find a coaching staff for him that had some of those kind of coaches that were always more of the positive, and then that works best for him. So I think back to the coaching, it's so important to find the right understanding. I think for parents, dads especially, don't listen to what your kids are telling you, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear. Pay attention to what they're doing, right? Because that's going to be the real answer.
Tell you what you want to hear? What? Does that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I see it all the time with kids that, of course, when you sit down and say to your son, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, I don't know. I want to be a D1 wrestler. What do you think their dad wants to hear him say?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But do they really? Right. And then what kind of coach do they want? I see dads all the time that like, oh, I love it. This coach just beats the crap out of my son and just pushes him so hard. Well, that's what you love.
Yeah.
Does he love it?
I think that might be me, Liam. Is that me? Am I the one that just wants you to get the crap kicked out of you all the time and just make sure you're learning from it? I'll stop doing that.
You don't really, I guess, like you understand that to a certain extent. I can't get the crap kicked out of me, but I think you internally enjoy it. Because those guys are paid to do it and they understand it. I think if you did it, it would be kind of
hospital visits.
Yeah.
No, that's right. But so coaching. So back into the coaching thing, and everybody needs to gel. I had to gel. I mean, my soccer coach was hard. I don't know. In thinking of what you're saying now, I don't know if I would have wanted a college coach like that, especially growing. And who I am now. Could you imagine me with someone who was yelling and screaming at me? I'd have been gone. Just done. But
it's got to be the right fit, right?
Yep.
I mean,
exactly.
And I like Kerry Colott. I think now that he's an academy coach, I think that's perfect because it's going to pull in the kind of kids that are ready to be in that military environment.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's going to do really well in that environment compared to, being a coach at more maybe a liberal college,
Campbell.
right?
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't have to stop cattle prods when he's at an academy like that.
Well, I don't think it was. I think that was him that got cattle prodded, not him doing it.
Internally, I'd like to think that maybe he advanced it a little more as he started coaching. I mean, the philosophy.
Maybe just maybe a taser nowadays, right?
right. Yeah. But yeah,
so where are we at then?
Coaching.
So we talked about towns.
Yep, we talked about coaches.
Small. Because I think town is the second most important thing.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
The environment.
And you'll hear some people talk. Well, the town.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the environment in a second, but the town, you're going to live there. You're going to try to find a job there. You're going to, it's the weather you like or don't like.
Or volunteer,
the
whatever
town,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. The town to me is a big part of the factor. I get a kick out of it when I talk to people who went on their recruiting trips. I'm like, what do you think of the town? Oh, we didn't have time to check the town out. Like, really? Okay. Well, yeah. Good luck.
Awesome.
Yeah. So then number 3, I look at it. Notice we haven't got to academics yet, right? So, So number 3 for me and for my son was what type of RTC do they have? So those are that wouldn't have to be 3 for everybody.
Sure.
Right. But 3 is for those who maybe want to try to wrestle beyond college or want to or enjoy the international styles or they like to wrestle more year round. That RTC provides that. Right. So, and not every school has a real RTC. A lot say they have an RTC, but a lot don't. So maybe we can come back to that in a little bit here. Right. And then number 4, team culture. And the reason I have team culture 4 out of 5 instead of top, I hear kids say all the time, oh, it just felt like family when I walked in. Right. And I caution that, right? Because if every year you're bringing in 7 new wrestlers, that means you're graduating 7.
Correct.
Right. Which means every year, 50% of your team changes. Right. So if you're making a decision, and typically colleges are going to have the juniors and seniors tour you around because they're more mature and they've gone through the process more. So if the guys you really like are the guys that toured you around, most likely they're going to be gone before you even get there because you're probably touring your junior year of high school. So you probably have 2 years before you even get on campus. So you're committing to something that isn't even going to exist when you're there.
Yeah. So I mean, how do you even comprehend then? I guess like what you could.
That's
be
why I don't
into.
have it top. Yeah. That's why I don't have it top 3.
I agree.
That's why I look at the coach because the coach dictates the culture.
Correct. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's right there. Totally.
And then number 5, I see this once in a while too. Don't pick a school for engineering if they don't have an engineering program. So. Number 5 is, does the school have what you want? But I also think as adults, we put crazy pressure on 16, 17-year-old kids to tell us what they want to do when they're 38, 40 years old, when most of us don't have it fully figured out. Right.
I agree.
I like the big campuses because it gives kids hundreds of options as they get into their 20s and figure things out, right? To ask a 16-year-old kid, what do you want to do? And they're always going to say the same thing. I want to be a DNR agent, right? That's the one I hear the most,
Heard
right?
That,
I want to be a coach. I want to be an astronaut. I want to play in the NFL.
You heard astronaut? Have you heard astronaut?
Not recently, but when I was growing up, it was big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back when we were on the high C diets. But
right.
But the point is, you're asking a kid before they even got a chance to sample the program in college. To tell you what they want to do. And not every high school is wired the same too. You might be one of the smartest kids in your grade in the high school, and you get to college and you're like, oh my gosh. I just got done talking to a friend of mine, and he doesn't mind if I use his name. He's a great kid. Max Ramberg out of Wisconsin. I just got done talking to his dad. Max just won his first college open yesterday, so he had a great day.
Nice.
And but Max did really, really well academically, and he still does. But he did really well at his high school. And then he got to college, and he's like, wow, I went from being one of the smartest kids in my grade to the dumbest kid on the team. Right, because he goes to Augustana, which is an academic powerhouse.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've heard that. Yep, for sure. Okay.
Right, so for those who are really looking to get into a great academic school here in the Midwest, we're maybe leaning towards the medical world. And you don't really want to wrestle beyond college. Then I would highly recommend looking at Augustana. It's a great Division II program. They have a lot of scholarships to give, and it's an academic powerhouse.
Where is it out of? Where's Augustana? Just for people who don't know.
It's Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is a really cool college town, by the way.
Okay. Yep.
Right. It's it's about the same size town you live in.
Okay.
It's about the same size as the Fox Valley, the Appleton area.
Nice. Very cool.
So it's a really cool town. Just a few more belt buckles, and the trucks are about an inch higher.
That's all right. That's fine.
That's all I've noticed. More plaid shirts, and
that's what they have out there. It's either that and chasing tumbleweed. So
absolutely, yeah. So those are the 5 things, right? When you look at it and say, and so Max chose Augustana. He had D1 offers.
Okay.
But Max chose, he's a super mature kid. He chose Augustana because he wants to get into the medical field.
Okay. So this is a big thing, especially for kids to realize. I mean, you're, oh my God, I want to be a Hawkeye. You know, oh my God, I want to be a Penn State Nittany Lion. But that may not have everything that you need no matter what. So, I mean, like you said, now he wants to do something specifically in the medical world. They fit exactly what he needs. D2, Augustana. I think a lot of kids miss that boat as far as I think not even in their junior and senior year. I think just from like freshman year on, they're so clouded by something that they've been dreaming of for so long, which it doesn't mean to take away from their dreams, but it's like, holy cow, there's like I keep telling everybody, we took him to North Carolina and he toured with Keaton. And it was a whole different world for him because, I mean, he's used to going to see like where the Badgers are or where, what the Hawkeyes do. He didn't see that. And it opened his eyes. And it's just one of those things where there's a lot out there. There is a lot out there.
Yeah. And I know we're diving into all this stuff, but you brought up Keaton, and one of the coolest recruiting stories I have for you is with Keaton Cleaver.
Yep.
And I volunteer for the Gopher RTC. So I'm at the practices quite a bit early in the spring, making sure that all the kids have their USA cards and all the criteria is met. So I'll check the kids in, help out. It's a good chance for me to talk to coaches, make sure, any of the fundraising we're trying to do, it's the one time we're always together. So I'll catch some practices. And I was at a practice and there was a top level recruit, super smart kid, scored a 35 or 36 on his ACTs.
Okay.
And so the University of North Carolina, obviously he's a Minnesota kid, so he was coming to the RTC, and Minnesota was high on his list. One, it's good academically, but it's a strong top 5-6 program year in, year out for wrestling. At his home, right? And his mom is a rocket scientist. She went to not literally, but she's super smart. She went to Creighton out of Omaha.
Yep.
And Creighton's another one of those Augustana Creighton type powerhouses.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Drake, Davidson, that's all in that same scenario. Well, she always wanted to go to Northwestern when she was a kid. So she really wanted him to go to Northwestern.
Yeah.
Whoops.
You're good. We got you. No, we don't got him. We're gonna wait a second while Jamie's figuring out what he's got going on there. What do you think so far? Oh, hey, there he is. I was just gonna.
All right.
Little sidebar conversation with Liam.
Yes.
No worries. So on their list, because he's such a smart kid, was Northwestern, UNC, which is where Keaton was at, because UNC is considered a junior Ivy.
Okay.
Right, because UNC is right up there with Duke and Notre Dame and that whole group of schools, that junior Ivy. He ended up choosing Stanford, so the kid was super smart, right?
Wow.
But
better.
At the time, it was between one of the questions was between UNC and Minnesota, and I said, well, I happen to have a kid here who could tell you about both, and I pulled Keaton over, and I said, would you mind telling her about your experiences? And this is really important for the kids to understand. Keaton goes, well, I don't know if you really want to hear my experience in college.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and if you know Keaton, he doesn't hold his opinions back too much, right?
He doesn't. No, that's
so
fine.
I'm thinking to myself, where's this heading, right? And I wasn't sure if it was going to be good or bad.
Yeah.
But Keaton put it out there, and this is the norm. Keaton said, look, I was top 5 in the country at my weight class coming out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was heavily recruited. I placed really good at some national tournaments. And sorry about that. Delvin Cook just scored a really long touchdown.
Nice.
I was recruited. And then also Keaton did really well academically in his high school and was in the top of his class.
Yep.
So he thought he was a super smart kid, but then he got to UNC and found out he wasn't a super smart kid. Because when you get to those colleges, the smartest of the smart are there. Being smart isn't good enough.
Yep.
You have to be talented in the classroom, right?
Yeah.
So, but when he went to UNC and he realized he wanted to be a teacher, he's like, why am I cramming so hard just to be a teacher and going to an academic powerhouse? But what he said to this parent was, I'm the norm. And this really resonated with me. He goes, I was top 5 in the country at my weight.
Yep.
I decided to go to UNC. I never cracked the lineup at UNC. And he said that coach kept calling me Keegan, not Keaton. He goes, didn't even really know my name when I left.
Yeah.
Right. And he goes, now I'm at a school where, they ask me, I'll get a text if I'm going golfing, what was your score?
Yeah.
They'll text me and say, how did your first date go?
Yeah.
And he goes, and I'm backing up the best wrestler in the world, pound for pound.
Right.
And they wanted to know how
yeah.
I was doing on a personal note, day in and day out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Where the college I left didn't even care who I was because I wasn't the starter. Right.
Yeah,
and he said, that's the normal college experience, not the exception.
Yeah.
And really what really helped me understand is why all these other things are so important to pick a college out is only 18% of the kids on the team will ever start.
Yeah. Yeah. You give me some pretty staggering numbers when it comes to like the realization.
I mean, think about it. The average team has 36 kids, only 10 start, and they all won Fargo. They all won state. They all placed at Super 32. A lot of them made world teams, and they're never going to start.
If I were in high school and you brought me the numbers that you bring me, I'd quit after my junior year, just like I did.
Yeah,
I was like, dude.
We could talk about the Minnesota numbers a little bit. I tried finding the Wisconsin numbers for you, but
that's right.
It would take a long time to go through it because they don't have a pound for pound ranking on the. I tried doing it for you. It was just too challenging.
We're working on it.
I have a general idea. It's relatively close to the same.
I know Zach is going to be working. Zach Pearson is the guy with Wisconsin Grappler. He's on here quite a bit, and he's been doing stats all his life. His mom did stats and stuff. Like back in the bullpen days when you sat underneath your bracket. He was helping his mom doing stats back, way back then. So
I'm a data-driven stats guy. So for me.
You are numbers. Like you remember stuff like no one else. Like I can't do that. You're like my wife.
Well, it's, if you're in business, you can be super organized, which I'm not.
Yeah.
You can be super, super intelligent, which I'm not.
Me either.
And then there's other people that pick up on patterns.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
And if that's who I am. I run my business based on patterns I recognize or pick up on. And that's kind of what I brought to wrestling and how people started asking me questions, because as my son was going through wrestling, I'd ask these coaches questions and they could never answer it. They just would tell you what their gut instinct would tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I started going on track wrestling and compiling all the data, and I learned most of them were 100% wrong on every question I ever asked them. Great one in Wisconsin that really led me to this was, and you can ask me more about it if you want, but when my son was young, it was kind of when Bo Bresky was coming through, and a couple of those other hammers. Garrett Joels was right behind him.
Yep, I remember those.
Who also won an Open this weekend, having a great weekend.
Gophers had a great weekend this weekend too. Holy cow!
Yeah, we did. They did well. We're a balanced team this year. So what I looked at was some of these coaches were telling me, "Oh, you got your son wrestling too much, or he's doing too many tournaments, or he's doing this, or he's doing that." Right. And so I started looking it up. And one of the things that they said is pause, take a break. You're pushing it too hard. And I'm like, okay. Yep. That makes sense. We'll pull back a little bit. And track wrestling had been around for a few years at that point. So I went through and looked at all the Division 1 and 2 state champs for Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I got into this debate with some private club owners in Wisconsin too. Yeah. And they brought up two examples of what hadn't happened, but it was just two. But what I learned was 91% of all the state champs in Wisconsin were state champs by the 5th grade.
Makes sense.
Did I win in the 5th grade?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yep.
I
think you won after that too.
So when you looked at it, 91% of them have had success since the 2nd grade.
Right on. Liam's excited.
Right.
All right.
So I was at
I'm kidding.
I was at a college open yesterday at a Bison Open.
Bison,
and it was funny because it was like hanging out with the same parents I've known since the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Right. It's all the. Yep. If they were good in 3rd grade, they were pretty much probably at the Bison Open.
Nice.
Gavin Drexler had a great day. Ran into the Drexlers. The Brenners were there. Right. So these are all just people that I've been around in wrestling since the 2nd grade. It hasn't changed much.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, that's off topic, but back
that's
to
fine. That's what you got to understand. We don't do things like the norm here. There's no keeping it on track. There's no, if we wind up somewhere, we wind up somewhere. We'll bring it back. That's not a problem. So you were talking about what again? Go ahead.
Well, we were just talking about stats,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you brought up the fact that if the kids really knew the numbers,
Yeah. It's scary.
It's a scary sport to get into, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a football player,
Yep.
and you make it all the way through your senior year,
Mm-hmm.
you have an 8% chance of playing football at the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? Division 1, 2, 3, or NIAI, 8%.
Yep.
Wrestling is a tick under 4%.
Okay.
Only 4%.
That's a crazy number. That's crazy. I
Right.
thought at one point you told me like 3% though too.
Well, so I'm including Division 3 and NIAI because I think those are important options for kids.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
I'm including that in there because NIAI gives great scholarships and especially up here in the upper Midwest. Now your son goes to Kakana and they've had a lot of success.
Yeah.
At the NIAI. I mean, John Diener, I think, just took second at an open yesterday.
Yep.
Who's a Kakana alumni, right?
Correct.
And he's killing it at, I think it's Morningside.
Morningside. Yep. That's
Morningside,
where Logan
yep.
Stumpf
And
had
then-
gone, I believe, too.
Possibly.
Yep.
And then I know some other kids from Kakana have gone down to Grandview, and the Kakana and
Yes,
Freedom had a group
Belize.
go down to Campbell. What was that? Campbell.
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Nope.
Ramsey Bloy went down there. Trey Leon went down there, and they had huge success. Both made
was
it
that
to the
Cumberland's?
finals. Cumberland's, thank
Yeah,
you. Cumberland's, yep.
Yep.
Mhm. And then the old coach for Freedom, who's now at Holman, Justin. Justin.
Was it McAllister? No.
I'm sorry. No.
I know who you're talking about though. That's sorry, Freedom. I didn't mean to do that.
I know. Sorry, Justin.
Yeah.
I consider him a close friend, and I'm just blanking on his name. Also, Lancaster.
Yes, there we go. Lancaster.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Justin's down at Holman right now, but he also went there, and so we've had some kids from the area go, but too many kids in our area are missing the boat on NIAI schools.
Yes, I agree.
And too many are missing the boat on Division II schools as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you live in Wisconsin, you have Parkside.
Yep.
You have Mankato.
Mm-hmm.
You have St. Cloud.
Yep.
And you have I just drove through there yesterday. It's just outside of Fargo. You have Moorhead.
Yep.
Right. So you have 5 Division II schools that all have in-state tuition.
Yeah.
So if you live in Wisconsin, you really have to trace Wisconsin and Minnesota and say that is your in-state opportunities.
Sure. Yep. I get it. I see what you're saying.
Don't just get so caught up on the cheese. You got to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
And say, where can I go to school?
So we kind of were touching on a little bit here with the coaches and what you were mentioning with, like the not specific dollars and cents, but what drives them necessarily for finding the kids that they find. But that doesn't just go with the coaches though. I mean, some of that is going to go the kids' way, right? There's certain things I was not recruited for college because my grades sucked. So I never talked to anybody. I wasn't exposed to any college guys, no coaches, nothing. And our coach just didn't do that. But
yeah, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Right?
There's so many things that you listed off the last time we talked. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, holy cow.
Yeah. So as an RTC board member, I've definitely given the Gophers some suggestions of, especially Wisconsin kids that they might not have been as familiar with.
Yeah.
And taking a look at a couple.
Yep.
And the first question they always ask me is, did you pull their social media? And my answer was always no. And they eventually stopped asking me my opinion because I wasn't
depth enough.
Looking up. Correct.
Yeah.
So I mean, when they're looking at kids, obviously they're looking at results, right?
Yep.
But not only do these coaches want to win, they want to maintain their jobs.
Yep. I agree.
And they can't take risks on kids who make big mistakes.
Yep.
Right. I think most coaches, if they find out that you're at a senior party and you had a couple beers, could probably overlook that. Right.
Right.
That I don't think is going to be a deal breaker. Right. But I think if they find out you've been caught at numerous parties and making bad decisions, or you were getting in some trouble, or one that I know really sticks out, if they find out you're a bully.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big one now. Yeah.
Yep. A bully. And I'll tell you that I've heard that come back on some kids too, that they're kind of a bully, and you want to be careful with that kind of stuff. And, you and I were talking about Lamar Jackson, and his mom taught him that really cool saying, right?
Yep.
And it's great to be kind, right? But it's only kind of good to be great, right? Like, so being kind is, you definitely want, you're going to be in an environment with 36 people from all over the country. They want to find guys that are fun,
good human beings,
that are going to be good to their teammates, and they don't all have to be alike, but they just have to be respectful.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. We talked about with Liam a little bit about that. Like, you don't have to be, there's no need to be a monster in a room full of, fairies. You can definitely just hang out and be cool. And,
matter of fact, your monsters in the practice room really usually aren't too well liked in the college room, because they enjoy their ACLs connected and their backs where they belong, and their fingers, where they're supposed to be.
Right.
The monsters usually get kind of ridden out of the college room.
Sure. Yep. I can see that. Right. I mean, who wants to, who wants to put up with that? You're going to bring a team down that way too.
You don't need to win at practice.
Right.
You need to get better at practice. Right. So, so that can kind of go the opposite way. So a lot of times you'll hear people go, "Oh, just his practice room attitude is just crazy." Well, it is crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So that isn't always a plus. Right.
Sure.
But having a good social media presence is important. The coaches really look for, what kind of content do you post? Like, are you posting some of your accomplishments, which is great? Are you posting some nice things about other people once in a while, not just yourself?
Yeah, your buddies,
right?
Your
like one of your teammates had a great accomplishment, you're posting.
Yep.
And some stuff too, like you shot a 12-point buck, or or your demolition derby car held up, or what, some of the other interests other than just wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Depending at the college you go to, like at the University of Minnesota, they're kind of known for having kids with a lot of balance in their life.
Okay.
So they have kids that want to do wrestling is their most important thing, but they also have other things. That doesn't mean that that's the case for, or should be the case for everyone. Like, say Iowa, for instance, the kids that are there, I mean, they live, breathe, all they want to talk about is wrestling. And there's nothing wrong with that either. If that's your obsession,
by all means. Yeah.
By all means, right? But that's where it's important for parents to really listen to their kids, because not that many are that obsessed. Maybe 30, 40 out of the entire NCAA, like, as far as like on one team.
Well, just with Liam alone, I mean, you can kind of see that, not necessarily that it's a negative change, but you can see just the attitude kind of shifting a little bit more. Like obviously a parent drives a child more than anything, but you can see the kind of the attitude kind of changing a little bit more. Like, that they need to have a social life. I mean, because you can tell
100%.
What is or isn't working, for them. So then you're like, okay, we got to change. So, but yeah, definitely.
Do you really want to have your son or daughter be the only one as a senior in high school without a boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Like, right. We may say we want that, but we don't really want that.
No,
we want them to be happy, enjoy life,
productive people of society. Correct. Yep.
Right. And the likelihood of them having a boyfriend or girlfriend in college is probably pretty high. So maybe to learn how to handle that in high school isn't the worst idea. Right. So,
definitely.
So things like that. But, and then, so they really look at, just your off the mat stuff. They take a deep dive into parents too, to make sure, it's a lot easier to have a kid get on the podium when there's a lot of support.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, right. Definitely the mental side.
If the support's not there, it's less likely to come together. Right. And I hear from a lot of college parents now that, I'm so much more involved than I ever thought I would be at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, wrestling is it's a family thing. So the parents stay pretty involved all the way till you're done. Even Olympians, their parents are still heavily involved.
So now you speak of the outside factors of social media with what coaches are looking at for kids. Are they checking out the parents too?
I would assume so.
Yeah. They're checking out, see what their social media is like, to make sure they're not dealing with a headache like me, I
mean, if you want to have a son or daughter that's recruitable, I'd maybe hold back on some of your super right wing or left wing political, thoughts. Not that you shouldn't have them, but those they all play a factor.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
In deciding, like, what's it going to be like to manage this kid on a big, huge campus?
Yeah. Parents beware.
Right, because those influences are going to be there.
Correct. I totally agree. I think that's the biggest factor. I think is because I mean, not only are you paying attention to the kid, but how they are is a product of where they came from. So I mean, do you want to deal with that whole scope of it too? Yeah.
Yep. So you want to be careful on that. And then, I know you and I have talked about this in the past, but if that college is reaching out to you, they really want to learn more about you. I always kind of use a pretty tacky analogy, but it's good for old timers like us.
Yeah.
That coach reaching out to you is like the guy back in the day buying a girl a drink at the end of the bar.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is my invitation, Olive Branch. I don't know who you are. You look nice. I just thought we could talk.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. Right.
Yep.
But if the girl at the end of the bar slides away the drink and doesn't even want to drink it, they're not interested. Right. If they drink it, you might go over and say hi. If maybe they come over and thank you for it. The thing the coaches are looking for from kids is when they extend that olive branch, that text message or that phone call.
Yep.
They're looking for the kid to equally communicate.
Okay.
Right. I hear kids all the time say, oh, the coaches went dark on me.
Sure.
What do you mean they went dark on you? Well, they sent me a text. I never heard from them again. I'm like, well, did you call them?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Right. We just talked about that today. A little I don't know, effort, just obviously you want to do something. So, I mean, if it's something that you want to do, you have to keep all of your options open and available.
Yeah. So when Penn State called on us, it became very apparent to me because the coach wanted to talk to me more than even my son.
Sure.
Was they were looking for families that wanted to be at Penn State. It wasn't about a financial decision. It was about being at Penn State.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Family.
And what I'll tell you is I think all your top 10 programs are they don't want to recruit too hard.
Sure.
Right. We lost at Minnesota. We lost a top tier recruit.
Yep.
And I know he liked they wanted to be recruited hard.
Yep.
And we weren't maybe as good at that as other schools.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And the reason Iowa and Penn State and Minnesota and Oklahoma State and North Carolina and ASU and many, many others have had all their success is they typically kids that want to be there.
Yeah. Right. Correct.
Right.
But those are the schools though too, that those kids are like, oh, I've wanted to go here forever, and it's like it was good enough to and chose to, yes, but it's like some kids don't get that opportunity. But
and if it was let's say you're deciding between school A and school B, and school A offers you a 30% scholarship and school B comes and says, okay, to get you, we're going to give 35.
Yep.
That scenario doesn't work out as well when you're bidding for a kid as much as a kid who wants a scholarship but isn't as caught up on that as much as they want to be at your school.
Okay.
Those are the kids that no matter whether they go to Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, wherever they go, if they go to the school they want to go to.
Yep.
I had a good friend of mine, his son was at Ohio State and then transferred to Penn State.
Okay.
And he got a call from him and he taught me a valuable lesson when it comes to recruiting for kids for wrestling is don't chase the money. Right.
Sure.
Because his son was at Ohio at college for 5-6 weeks, and then he got a call said, "Told you I didn't want to be here." And he goes, because they went where mom and dad wanted him to go.
Yeah, that
and
hurts.
Not where he wanted to go. And he said to me, "There's no way coming back from that conversation as the parent, right?"
Right.
The second they said, "I told you I didn't want to go here,"
that sucks.
And so they went where he ultimately wanted to go. He's having huge success there. He's ranked number 2 in the country right now.
Nice.
And he didn't chase the money. He's there for less money than he could have got elsewhere, but he's at the campus that he felt most comfortable at.
Well, and it was like the other variables you mentioned, the coaching and the environment, the town, all that stuff. So it's,
and it's not like the program he was at was bad either. It was a phenomenal program. He's at the program he felt more comfortable in.
So people don't get disillusioned. I mean, there are options. Not every star is going to align. So it's the bigger stars that you take a look at that you got to balance those options out. You really got to think about, because obviously we just found out that a kid didn't even want to go to the school. It was more the parents, and it wasn't about the money. The kid really thrived more in the room.
this is a multi-world champ too. We're talking about, right? So it's like he's committed to the sport.
Yep. So he's saying parents should have just listened.
Yeah. Well, and they did. It took them a minute, but I've gotten some great advice from them over the years that have helped us a lot. You know, things that they wish they would have done different, or things that went well. Or,
right.
And great family. But and then moving forward too. So when these colleges reach out to you, they're super interested in you, okay? But your high school resume, to a degree, is your scholarship.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So don't think just because you won state in Kansas that's a full ride scholarship. It's very far from that. Right. You can go on a lot of Division 2 and 3 teams. There's a lot of kids starting at Division 3 teams right now that are 4-time state champs.
Sure. Yeah. You mentioned that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. A lot of them. Go look at the Augsburg roster once. They have a ton of 3- and 4-time state champs up and down their roster.
I just watched a couple of those guys wrestle this weekend. Pretty impressive.
You know, St. Cloud State gets some of the best in-state kids from Minnesota and Wisconsin that were getting D1 opportunities as well, right? But those kids, I think, made a little bit more financial choice because St. Cloud State's a very affordable college.
Right.
And they said, look, it's, when you get into the recruiting process for wrestling, you're going to learn that these scholarships, for the most part, are pretty small.
Sure. Athletic ones, anyways.
They're not big. And there's some new rules with scholarships that even make it more challenging, right?
Okay.
We'll get into that too. I know we talked about that a little bit, but your average scholarship in wrestling is probably, for those who get one, you're probably talking a 30-35% scholarship's a pretty damn good scholarship.
Okay. Yeah, because we had mentioned, I think we talked about it on one of the episodes, that was a new rule where if it's less than 20%, you don't get one.
Well, yeah. So starting with the 2023 grade, this year's seniors, every scholarship has to be a minimum of 20%, or nothing at all. Okay, and just so we can make light of what that is now, just last year within the Big Ten, I'd say a majority of the team in the Big Ten schools were probably in 10 and 15% scholarships.
Okay.
There's probably only 10, 12 guys that were on more than that, right?
So now they're going to be more selective.
Right. So now a lot of those same kids are going to come in for nothing at all.
Yeah, walk-ons.
Right. And or D2 might be an option for them, right? But you have to understand too, with D2, they can have 9 scholarships, but very few D2 scholarships offer 9. They have up to 9, right? It's just like another myth that people think is D1 has 9.9 scholarships.
Yeah.
A lot of D1 programs only offer 2 or 3.
Oh, I mean, but they use that just a big lump to give to 2 or 3 guys then,
or however they want to use it.
Sure. Yep.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
So why wrestling? We were talking about those stats, and we'll get into them a little bit with the Minnesota stats that are, I'd say, about 90% accurate. I could be off by 1 or 2, but it's what I found.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd
say they're generally accurate.
Yep.
But one of the things that with these scholarships and where they're at is a team. What we saw was in our recruiting processes, teams were doing a little bit of money ball, I call it.
Sure.
And that's actually what it was explained to me by a Big Ten coach.
Yep.
And what we saw is my son's offers and Chase's offers, my foster son, as I like to call him, their offers were pretty much the same from every college. So what Gavin got at the University of Minnesota is about the same offer he got at all the other colleges that he was talking to.
Sure. Yep.
Minus Penn State, who I could tell Penn State was really, really looking for us to be all about, do you want to be here? Like, don't worry about the money. Do you want to be on the team? Which I can appreciate that. They have a phenomenal program. Like, I don't know what we're going to give you. Do you want to be on the team? Right. Like I get that when you're the best team in the country.
Right. Doesn't mean you're starting for them though either, like, oh man.
Right.
That's hard.
So to kind of look at these levels a little bit, right? And these are just my opinions. I don't represent anybody in my opinions. This is just kind of what
your philosophy on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a couple times state champ, and maybe haven't competed much on the national level, D2 is a phenomenal option.
Sure. Yep.
Right. It doesn't mean D1 is not an option, but you got to realize with the new rules, you're probably going to be a walk-on.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, everybody's
Right.
going to have to weigh that out. Yeah.
Right. So you got to weigh that up for yourself. Now, if you're a multi-state champ and you've placed really well at Fargo once or twice, maybe you're going to make that threshold of that 20% scholarship.
Sure. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then if you've maybe a 3-4 time state champ, maybe you've won Fargo or made it to the finals, and maybe you've also All-American at Super 32.
Yeah.
Well, now maybe you're going to get that 40-50% offer.
True.
Right.
Yep.
And then if you've made a world team, maybe you'll be that lucky kid that gets that 60-70% offer.
Very true. Yep.
I haven't met too many kids that have gotten much more than that personally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And why is a world team worth a little bit more? It's because if you take top 3 at cadet or juniors, you qualify for an Olympic red shirt in college. So that's a value to those colleges.
So with that being said, I mean, obviously rankings become a little tougher for kids too, I mean, because it's not just looking at state stuff anymore. It's rankings from state to state now really put more national level competition on.
They do.
The coaches doing that too. And they're, as far as
a little bit,
rankings,
national rankings matter.
Yep.
I'm not saying they're always accurate or they're 100%. And I don't know that they're going to look at you and say, oh, you're number 6 or you're number 12.
Yeah.
And they look at that. But, if you look at the track record of the flow top 25 list over the last 15, 16 years, their top 25 kids typically, if you ever listen to the flow shows, they put out what their results were.
Yeah.
I'd say their top 25 kids, 80% of them end up having pretty strong college careers. Right. Yep. So those numbers do equate to, I'm not saying they're 100% accurate, but they do equate to some success.
They're close enough to be, I guess, obviously paid attention to when it comes to anybody looking at anything. So
correct.
So, okay.
Yep. And then, so we were talking about that data that I pulled from Minnesota, right? It's, again, this isn't 100% accurate, but it's really close.
Yep.
Right. I took the last 10 years of the top. The Minnesota has a program called the Guillotine.
Yep.
And the Guillotine is just like WI Wrestling, or every state has their version, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And the Guillotine does a great job. They've been around for a long time. Really cool program.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the Guillotine has ran a really good top 20 pound for pound list for a long time. So I took the last 10 years of that, and I just went through the top 20 of each grade, which I'm a public school kid, you're a public school kid, but that comes up to 200 kids.
Yep.
Okay. Out of that 200 kids in the last 10 years, 37 of them became D1 starters.
That's 3 a year. Yep. A little over 3 a year.
Which is 18%.
Yep.
It's 3.7 a year.
Yep. Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So it's 18%, which is exactly what the starting average is when you get to college, right? So it's not it's not a coincidence that it comes up to about the same. It's 19%. Out of that 37, only 7 to 9 of them, there's 1 or 2 I'm not 100%. I feel confident about telling you 7, but it might be as high as 9.
Sure.
Were 4-year starters.
Okay. 4-year starters.
And some of that was because of the COVID era too, right? That we're in, right?
And that's 7 or 9 out of the 200 total that you mentioned already. So that's a big breakdown already.
That's 3.5%.
Yowza.
Of the top 20.
Yeah.
And then I looked at kids who became starters that weren't ranked in the top 20, and there wasn't one.
Oh, really? It's just
not one.
It's so daunting to think that. Yeah.
Right. And then I looked at the bottom 10. So if you're ranking them 1 through 20, I looked at 11 through 20, and there was only 1 or 2 kids that weren't ranked in the top 10 that became starters.
Wow.
So that's basically, if you're not in the top 10 in your grade from these smaller states like Wisconsin and Minnesota, if you're not in the top 10, you've literally got a 1 or 2% chance of ever starting.
And that's like that. Just again, even though this is the second time I'm hearing this from you, just thinking of that is just, I mean, it's daunting. It's just crazy to think of as a kid. You're like, yeah, I want to do this. And then as you get older and older and you start finding out things like these numbers and things like that. And it's not to say that it crushes dreams, but it's like, oof, okay. change it up a little bit,
but
man.
You could also say without the dream, it doesn't happen, right?
Oh, totally.
But that's also, I think, where you're bringing up a good point is somewhere between that junior and senior year, maybe your sophomore now to junior because of the recruiting cycle.
Yeah.
At some point, dreams need to become goals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the advice I give parents is like, if they're telling you, yeah, I want to be a D1 wrestler, that's great. That's a dream.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
But what are they going to the weight room 4 or 5 days a week? Are they running? Are they dialed in with their nutrition?
Yeah.
Are you having to micromanage everything? Because if you are, that's your goal, not theirs.
Not theirs. Correct.
Right. And I'm not saying that parents aren't still involved in that, but if you're having to constantly start the fire, right?
Then literally just had this conversation in the car.
Right.
On the way back home. Yeah.
Yep. And it gets, by the time they're 17, 18 too. I mean, I've gone through it a few times now. And if you're having to light the fire at that age, it's daunting for the parent too. It gets old.
Yeah. Way old, man. I got my own stuff to take care of.
But I know one of the things I hear from Lucas Stelp a lot and Jeff Machek, two guys you're pretty familiar with, right?
Very, yep.
Is they wished that wrestling parents in their neck of the woods were as involved when the kids were 16 and 17 as they were when they were 6 or 7.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Just to help.
And there's too much involvement when they're young.
Mm-hmm. And not enough when they get older.
When they're older.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's too many parents like, oh, they're 16 now. And, and it's up to them. That's not true.
Well,
we don't let them do that with everything else they do.
And I had that scare, because I literally just talking to Liam about it. I told him, we're not, you can't hold your hand forever. You got to, at some point you have to try on your adult pants, and it might be failing. It might be failing a test because you weren't paying. I mean, so we're telling, and this is what we're telling them anyways, that we're just at the point where we can't hold your hand, but we're not going to let you just forever fail. We're going to let you fail to learn, but I can't be there to catch every single thing you do now, because you do have to become somewhat independent. And I also don't want my kid moving out and completely hating me when he leaves for college. I want him to be able to go to college knowing that he can call us and be like, hey, I'm having an issue. But I also want him to know that these kids have to be able to figure it out for themselves. Because I'll tell you this, I work second and third shift. And the shift I work on, you can tell the mentality of just upbringing, just at work alone. Yeah. And that's kind of how I try to describe it to him. You think this is just the wrestling room stuff, man, it's going to follow through into life, and you're going to hate life, man. So pay attention to what you got going on.
You bring up one final point on that list that that Hector Mendez taught me. Yeah. Which was, for them, was distance of school. And I'll tell you, and being around a Big Ten program a lot is, and these kids are all so phenomenal in high school, right? Yeah. And then only 10 of them get a start in college, right? And they're only wrestling hammers week in and week out. There's no breaks like conference tournaments. And you go back and look at most of these state brackets for these kids, the state brackets really weren't even that hard, right? For the ones that are in college. You go back and be like, oh, I thought that was a hard bracket. Now I look back at it and it really wasn't, right? Yeah. And especially in Minnesota and Wisconsin, where we have 3 divisions with a little population, it's not that hard to make state.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
Yep. I agree.
Statistically, it's pretty favorable.
Yeah.
But with that, you look at some of these kids who are used to being the baddest dude in their county or their region of their state or their state. Yep. And then they get to college and on their team, they're just a dude. And then when they get to the opens, they're not even a dude. They're a whooping post, right? It's an emotional roller coaster.
I can imagine.
And so in wrestling, I would recommend, unless kids are super independent, like my chaser is, Chase, but it's emotional, and a lot of kids need you to be a 3-4 hour drive away, right? Yeah. There's a lot of times where maybe you got to whip over and take your kid out for a wedge of pizza and talk for a while, because it's a brutal sport with a lot of demands. Yeah.
So. We're just kind of talking about the high school demands itself. Like, Liam realized that he doesn't have a study hall this next trimester, whatever they're called now. And then he's like, it's going to be tough. I was like, well, it's good point to learn from. If you're going to be that busy, learn your balance.
I'll tell you the other thing that if you're in a trimester that you may have an advantage of is trimesters and quarters. If you are a stud and you get all your grades and stuff done early, a lot of these kids are getting to their college teams early now, right?
Yes.
So schools that have semesters,
yes,
you have to do your whole senior year, where kids that are in quarters and trimesters,
mm-hmm.
a lot of times they can get out to their college team much earlier. And gray shirt out there, we haven't got into gray shirting yet, by the way, but that's something we should. Do you write any of these little tidbits down so we come back to them, or are we just free balling it?
Nope. I'll go back and listen to an episode later on.
Okay.
If we got to come back to something, we'll do that. No. This is all free ball.
Okay.
I mean, I always have questions, but the other thing though too is typically the people I'm bringing on know enough that if I need to figure something out, I'll just go back to the episode and fast forward through it. Honestly, if I tried to read my writing after I was done writing it, I probably wouldn't. It's like doctor's writing.
Absolutely. So one of the things I was listening to up in North Dakota, which is beneficial for Wisconsin kids, is that yesterday I was listening to some North Dakota kids talk. I was up at the Bison Open, and they brought up a great point that if you go to North Dakota, but you stay up there the whole year and you work in the off season, you can get in-state tuition. So your first year might be really expensive, but your second, third, and fourth year are
you can go back
really affordable.
Yeah.
Right?
So is that a regular thing with other colleges?
Yeah, no, it's state by state.
Okay.
Right. Like, I think Missouri has a real easy path to in-state tuition. Indiana has a real easy path to in-state tuition. Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin do not.
Sure.
So it's expensive. And it's also when you're a fan and you're wondering, why is Wisconsin and Minnesota not getting all these hammers? Well, we don't have some of the tricks that some other states can do to get guys in at cheaper prices. And Wisconsin and Minnesota are both academic powerhouses when it comes to state schools.
Yeah.
And
say that,
26, 27 on your ACT isn't going to get you any special.
Well, and let's face it. I mean, not all athletes are geniuses. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot of them are hoping for that pro contract, of some sort.
Yeah. But a 26, 27 ACT score is a quality ACT score in some schools.
Yeah, for sure.
You can get rewarded for that, but at a lot of Big Ten schools, probably not.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that, like, usually it's like if it's 26 or below, they're not even like thinking about you.
Well, okay, so what's going on right now with COVID is a lot of your schools aren't asking for ACT scores right now.
Oh, geez.
Right. So, like,
wow.
For my son, he didn't have to have an ACT score to get into Minnesota. Now, we were doing another program though called PSEO, which in Minnesota, if you're a junior, you can start going to the community college instead of high school.
Okay.
Right. Sure. So his credits will all transfer to the U. But even if that wasn't the case, it's not. And the only time you really want to take an ACT score or test currently is if you think you're going to get academic help. If you think you're going to get above a 28 on your ACTs, then I would go do it, because you might be able to test out of some courses, save mom and dad some money, or get into the course you want to get into. So, if you don't have, say, a 32, or I'm just making up a number, but a 30 on your ACTs, you're probably not going to get into the engineering program you want to without having to go to your general courses first and maintain a super high GPA.
Hit up some summer school or whatever it is, and
whatever it may. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Great. Should we hit gray shirting a little bit?
Yes. Because I only know of red shirting, and even that gets a little confusing. So what's gray shirting?
Well, so gray shirting's kind of it's not new, right? But it's especially with the COVID era right now, it's happening quite a bit.
Okay.
And so gray shirting is an opportunity for kids, say they want to move to Pennsylvania, for instance, right? Go to Pitt or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
They can go there and take up residency, take only 10 credits or less a semester, so they can get some college credits, get their feet wet.
Yeah.
They maintain a part-time job. And in some states, and you can wrestle with that RTC 3, 4, 5 days a week, depending on how often the RTC is practicing.
Yep.
And then it's a great opportunity to get in-state tuition because you take up residency. So when your kids get there, you get them an ID, they get a driver's license, residency, right? And some of the schools, you can get into what we call the wrestling house, where rent a room where all the other wrestlers are staying. So you still have that support. Yeah. A lot of times guys will just, for affordability reasons, they'll hit a community college right by campus, so the credits are cheaper. And they're only trying to get 10, 12 anyway, which is going to help you over the next 4.
Well, and it lightens your load during the year though too, doesn't it? So that way
that's right,
practices and stuff aren't as hard.
Yeah. Or let's say you're light for your weight and you need to get bigger. Or maybe you're a little guy and you're too small for 125 or whatnot. And you got to get bigger or whatever the case may be. So that gray shirt is beneficial for a lot of guys. And you're seeing your top tier teams, like at Minnesota, we typically have 1 or 2 guys gray shirting a year.
Okay. And that, so that the gray shirting is literally just giving them time to get residency. Is that what
No, I mean, it can be all kinds of things. Maybe they just want 1 extra year to develop.
Okay.
Maybe they're looking at it and saying there's 15 hammers at that weight and I want 1 more year to get away from that.
Let the room clear.
One of the things that you talked about is, picking the right college. And a lot of it is the college you've always dreamed of going. The year before you're eligible to verbal there, they might have picked up 6 hammers at your weight. And now you've got to have plan B.
Okay. So the gray shirting doesn't affect your eligibility. The big
does not
scheme of it. It doesn't affect the
correct. You can still hit opens and some of the other things.
And you still have your 4 years of actual real competition or whatever you want to call it.
Well, you have 5 years actually because you still have your red shirt, right?
Yep. So, wow. So you can. So is there anything that gets in the way between a gray shirt and red shirt? If someone did gray shirt, can you red shirt down the road because like Olympic red shirt or medical red shirt?
Not only can you red shirt, you can still get an Olympic red shirt and you can still get a medical red shirt.
Wow. So you could wrestle for 10 years almost.
There are guys in wrestling right now that have been around a long, long time. Yep. Especially with all this COVID stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again,
why
wrestling is so, it's so challenging.
Yeah. It's like chess. I mean, just trying to figure out.
It was 4th down and 18 with 1.5 minutes to go. And the Vikings just got a huge reception. So game's still alive. Anyway.
Is it championships right now for those guys?
Well, they're playing the Buffalo Bills, so it's 2 of the top teams.
Oh, you're talking NFL. I thought you were talking about never mind. I thought you were talking about high school football.
Sorry about that. I was just distracted for a second. So anyway, with that, it's so the gray shirt for some is a valuable way to do it, right?
Okay.
And I think at Wisconsin, Braxton Amos gray shirted.
Okay. Really?
Yep.
I guess now it gets a little confusing for me then. So what's the difference between a red shirt and a gray shirt then?
Well, you can't be a full-time student and you don't get any of the perks of your scholarship
if you're gray shirting.
Anything else if you're gray shirt, correct? Okay.
So
everything you do is on your own.
If you're given that scholarship and you gray shirt, is it still just on hold there? Like it's yours?
It's on hold. Yes.
It's just in limbo until you figure out exactly what's going on.
That's correct.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense. That's kind of where I was getting things confused. So red shirt, gray shirt, both beneficial as long as you play your chess right. Are there downfalls to either one?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you are not a super independent driven kid, like, Braxton, from everything I've heard, is a super smart kid.
Yes.
And pretty responsible. And, but if you're a kid that's maybe a little bit of a follower or just normal, what I would say normal kid.
Yeah.
A gray shirt might not be the right fit for you because you're really on your own.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, your books, all that stuff. I mean, that's the scholarship goes towards all that stuff. Well, whatever they choose to put it towards.
Well, but maybe mom and dad can afford that.
Yeah.
Gray shirt year can help you out. Maybe your part-time job pays enough to help out too.
Yeah.
But if you're mentally not ready to be on your own,
sure.
Because the one thing about a college red shirt is you're only on your own a day or two a week when the team travels.
Okay. Yep.
Right. The rest of the time, your new mom and dad, the coaches, they're right there to make sure,
sure,
that they have an idea of what you're up to.
Okay. So gray shirt is basically just a pause on everything. Just you're in school. Yep.
Mental growth, physical growth, gotcha. Residence, okay. Another year to train. Maybe your dream is always to be a D1 guy.
Yep.
And you're willing to be that walk on, but you want another year to even develop so you have a better shot of becoming a starter. I mean, a lot of your, especially when you look at these scholarships and you look at the offers, a lot of times the 20% offer, I mean, if you're there for 5 years, 20% comes up to 100%.
Yep.
And a lot of times those 20% offers, maybe you're looking at a guy who they project as a 1 or 2 year starter.
Yep.
Guys who are on a bigger scholarship, they're expecting more of you, right? More years of starting. And And so maybe that gray shirt gives you that extra year to develop.
Can you practice in the actual college room with a gray shirt, or can you only practice
if they
at
have
the
an
RTC?
If they have an RTC.
If they have an RTC, you can practice in the college room. If they do not have an RTC, you can't even practice in the college room on a gray shirt.
I don't believe so.
Okay, and yeah, I'm not holding you to it or anything like that, but yeah.
Okay. I'm sure there's, right now with the new NCAA rules and the compliancy officers really dictate what goes on at each university.
Sure,
so
yeah.
It could even be different based on that university's beliefs and right.
Okay. Right on.
So
there's
but typically the advantage of gray shirting is at a school where you can get in with the guys once in a while, right? So that'd be one of the advantages of it.
You would think, yeah. So you'd want like an RTC program. But so now with red shirt, now there's medical red shirt, there's Olympic red shirt, but each of them it's for the whole year. Can you pull it whenever you want?
So I believe the most common red shirt is your freshman red shirt, right?
Yep.
Right. And
you suggest most guys do that.
Yeah, it's really up to each kid. I mean, how college ready are you? And, did you come from a prep school, or maybe you already got 13 years in,
sure.
Like a Wyoming Sem or a Blair.
Mm-hmm.
But a red shirt, I think, gives you that year to get used to being on campus, grades, food, practice.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids I'm talking to, their practices are a lot more intense than they were in high school.
Sure.
Their weight's lower than they thought it was going to be, or high. Now maybe they're lifting for the first time and it's higher. So that red shirt gives your body a chance to adjust. It gives your, a chance to get to class and
not every 18-year-old's done growing mentally or physically for that matter too.
Especially mentally.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
Right. So, but that red shirt, you can still do opens, and now the red shirts, they're attached. Hold on here a second. I think, the Vikings just took the lead and only given Buffalo 54 seconds to come back. So,
hey.
With that said, the red shirts are attached now. Okay, so that rule just changed this year. So they get 5 attached competitions before January. In the past, everything they did was unattached. Meaning if they wanted to go to the Bison Open, they had to get their own transportation there, their own hotel, their own everything.
But you're talking off season.
No, during the season.
Oh, during the season. Okay.
So, but now starting this year, So last year, all the freshmen, if they wanted to hit an open, say they did Atronic in South Dakota, they had to find their own transportation. They had to find their own hotel rooms, and coaches were not allowed to be in their corners.
Interesting. Okay, now that's changed,
right? But now, the freshmen get 5 attached. So you'll see more freshmen starting home duels now. Maybe they brought in a hammer that the fans can't wait to see.
Yeah,
they might roll him out as a freshman to take on somebody really good because it won't hurt his eligibility anymore. But then a lot of times they'll let these, so no one has to make a decision on if they're redshirting or not until they've done their 5 attached, right?
Okay.
And then if you want to continue, then you have to not take your red shirt.
Sure.
And if you're cool with those 5, then you can continue and just redshirt that year. So now it gives every freshman a little leeway to kind of figure out if they should.
Can you spread? I mean, are you able to? Obviously, the coaches have in mind of what they want you to compete at, so they're going to give you a list. But do you think they spread those out for the guys to maybe have the 5 during a year? Do they let the guys pick those? The opens.
Well, that's a great question. This is the first year, and I think a lot of them are navigating it.
Yeah,
and they're learning. I think, if you look at all the things that have sprung up on these coaches over the last few years, right?
NIL, all that other stuff. Yeah.
One of the things you think about in sports, right, is they always talked about, you take your old football coach and, they do the same thing at every single time at the same time, because that's when, that's how it works, is consistency wins. Right.
Yep.
Well, now everything these coaches have had to do for 3-4 years is every single time, every single season, something dramatically is different. Now you have the portal, the transfer portal, and then the NIL deal, and then and then now this
redshirt rules and stuff like that.
It has been a crazy 3-4 years for these coaches. Like everything they know about their job has changed dramatically each and every year.
Yeah, and I think that's you bringing the coaching aspect into it again. I think it's extremely important. And you and I have talked about this as far as having knowledgeable guys, not only on the college level, but at the high school level about college wrestling when kids are serious about this stuff. Because again, you and I talked about this. We can talk about this another time. How number one, the state of Wisconsin was kind of riding high for a little bit. And it's just like every other state. They have their ebbs and flows. And we started to go down. And now looking at, with the coaching staffs that are coming around, these guys were wrestlers. They were, and it's not far removed, like Ben Askrens and Josh Wagner's and Max Askrens. Those guys were in it, and now they're coaching clubs. They're not necessarily coaching high schools, but now I noticed too, not just those guys, but now high schools are grabbing onto this, just like Minnesota. You and I talk about a lot. Had so many different coaches as far as former college wrestlers, but recent former college wrestlers have started to step in now, and I think it's even more beneficial having guys like a John Reeder who aren't maybe 20 years old, but they're still in the area of understanding and passing that knowledge on to guys that are younger, like the Seth Gross, those guys who will be stepping into college coaching roles or high school coaching roles. It's important for those guys now to pass that down, and we have a lot of that now coming into Wisconsin, and Minnesota's benefited from for a long time, but with all these rule changes, it's good to have all these young guys coming in and coaching and really kind of, giving parents a hand and the athletes a hand of understanding where they're going to be going. So it's good.
Yeah, it's and it's when you look at states like Pennsylvania and Ohio and why they're so dominant, it's not just their population.
Yep.
They have so many wrestling colleges in those states, and when those kids graduate, they don't just open a club, they grab a high school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have enough club coaches. We need some more of these hammers to become high school coaches.
High school. Yep. I agree.
And that's where Minnesota's been lucky in the last couple decades since J-Rob was the head coach. Is he really encouraged a lot of his kids to get into coaching, and there's a lot of coaches in the Twin Cities that coached, or wrestled under J-Rob or Dan Gable or Roger up at NDSU.
Yep.
Especially in Minnesota, because they have reciprocity of North and South Dakota as well. So they have so many kids that go on and wrestle in North Dakota, South Dakota, but they move back to the Twin Cities and they become high school coaches or middle school coaches
that's
and
good.
then Augsburg puts on a lot of coaches as well.
Okay.
So
yeah. Very cool.
It's nice when you have St. Cloud State, which is one of the dominant Division II schools, Augsburg dominant Division III, and then Minnesota top 10 every year kind of school that are right there. A lot of those kids go back to their hometowns and help coach. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, knowing what we know now, just in the state alone with wrestling, I think it's we are noticing an uptick now. I mean, with clubs like, not just clubs, but I mean, high schools. I mean, I didn't know much before about Arrowhead. I didn't know much before about Stoughton. And they've had storied programs. It's not like those programs are here like yesterday. They've been putting out numbers for a while.
I think some of that's just that your age where you're that parent now. Too,
Yep,
right?
Totally.
But I think also with track and flow and even silly podcasts like this, we all learn so much more than what used to be out there.
We're evolving.
So we call it the a lot of us call 2013 kind of the before and after, almost Christ, if you will, like in wrestling. Because remember, we almost lost wrestling in the Olympics.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then after that, attitudes changed and scoring became more important and spectator appreciation of the sport and making the sport better. And then about 2012-13 is when all the clubs that we're talking about right now really started to, come together. And now you have these incoming freshmen that I think the gap in college has gotten big again because now you're talking, if you're your fifth year in college, you probably grew up in a club system.
Yeah.
Where a few years ago when Mark Hall and those guys came through, they were the first group to really come out of that club system. They walked in their freshman year and were just beating the crap out of everybody because they had so much mat experience. Now you get to college and to be a 4-year starter again is going to be extremely rare because everybody on those teams has come from a strong club. And every state has a good club now.
And that's
it's
awesome.
not unique it's not unique to just one state.
Right.
Right.
Well, that P&L event kind of showed that, put quite a few of them on display, which I wish Liam would have been at, because there are some great guys there.
P&L didn't even have some of the best clubs in the country there.
Right. No, right. I mean, obviously,
there's a few of them that felt a little slighted about it.
I'm sure I'm sure they either reached out or didn't reach out, but it's one of those things where it's the showcase thing now. We had the Big Cheese, and then you have the Who's Number One events. I think has been the evolution's been great. The evolution of the sport since I've been a kid, anyways. Because, again, I come from bullpens and standing underneath brackets and stuff. The evolution from where I came from is astounding. It's huge.
Yeah.
Soccer
there's a
hasn't
lot
changed.
More promotion.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more promotion to the sport of wrestling. It's almost given it a new life, if you will.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
correct.
And I think, MMA may have an influence on that too, where MMA has taught us in wrestling how to turn these into events.
Yeah.
And events pull in spectators bring in sponsors, and then that helps elongate careers. And you're seeing that now too, when kids are done with college, they can make an RTC career.
Sure.
I saw something over the summer that the average RTC athlete was making about $70,000 a year in stipends to train. So that's a game changer when you come out of college and continue to train.
Well, now that brings up another thing that you and I kind of talked about. I mean, the kids that are going in, I mean, obviously if you're training hard, you're working hard, things like that, and your senior year, is there any incentive for these kids? Because we're noticing this a lot. And I know I get a little irritated when I hear people talking about how kids shouldn't commit early. They shouldn't. And to me, I think some of the commitments that have come out in the past couple of years were just like, I don't know. When you hear the opinions of people who know this stuff, are like, it doesn't matter. They can change if they want to. I get it. But with the kids being able to jump in and change, is there something that is in it for the kid if he does commit early?
Yeah, sometimes,
my son certain schools or whatever.
Early.
Yeah.
He committed very early and held true to his commitment, right?
He's different though. Gavin we knew he was going to go to Minnesota though.
He's a pretty level-headed, mature kid,
yeah,
right? So, so I knew when he made his commitment that he'd see it through. Not that I hold anything against kids that change their commitments,
sure,
because it just, you're asking a 16-year-old to make a commitment.
Correct.
And they may change, right? Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that. I have 3 kids, and my youngest one is my more level-headed one. So for him to commit early was not a problem, because he's got that. He's just wired that way, right? But also I've seen plenty of other super smart kids decommit and go somewhere else because they've changed, or maybe the school changed in the time they committed, right?
Yep.
We were given some advice when Gavin verbaled really early by one of his world team coaches, and I said, "Hey, coach, is it too early for Gavin to verbal?" He goes, "No, you'll get a better deal if you verbal early." Okay. And he goes, "You can decommit anytime you want. Like you could decommit because you don't like the new singlets. I mean, right. You can. That's up to you, right? But there's usually more of an advantage, if you're ready to commit early, especially." If you're committing to a school within 250 miles of your house, because now you have access to the RTCs, you have access to advice.
As a crow flies, 250 miles.
As a crow flies, correct. Yeah. Okay. So when you can get in and take advantage of these and get into the program, and now your top high school guys, shoot, by the time they're seniors, most of these guys have been training in an RTC with college guys for a couple of years. Yep. Right. I mean, it's going to be hard for these sophomores and freshmen, especially at the upper weights, to keep up with the bigger guys, because they've got, I mean, my son pretty much only wrestles with college guys, right? So it's a huge advantage, right? Yep. So
that's kind of where we're getting to.
And it also, that's what, it's cool and it sucks at the same time, right? And you and I are part of the problem, right? Yep. And we're the dads that, whenever there's a new opportunity, we're going to take advantage of it. Yeah. And because we're trying to keep up to the Joneses, and maybe we are the Joneses, but we're trying to keep up the best we can. But that also hurts the sport. I'm wise enough to see both sides of that coin, right? And the good quality average wrestler in our sport, just really doesn't have an opportunity anymore, right? I mean, my son still plays football. My favorite thing about football is it's the only male sport left with a start and an end date.
Yeah.
It starts on this date and ends on that date.
That's very true.
Soccer does not have a start and end date.
Oh,
Basketball
God,
does not. Baseball does not. Wrestling does not. Right. And so wrestling with the clubs and now the RTCs and everything, it's awesome for those who really love it.
Yep.
And it's not fair for those who don't know if they love it or not yet. You know, it's
I see what you're saying.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Right. And we're part of the problem. I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I get it. So I mean, it's an opportunity thing.
If they put rules in to balance it out, I'd also be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's why, even the RTC thing, like like a normal guy would be like, oh, I could just take my kid there. No, wait, you have to do this and this because they don't just want.
You have to qualify.
Yeah, correct.
And here's the other thing too. You can't slow the room down, right?
Yep.
Like these colleges, they love helping out and they don't mind cadets and juniors being in there.
They still have a season.
They have a season. They have big responsibilities, right? A lot of these college coaches are making huge money now, which is new, right?
Yep.
And it's not the day of the Division I coach only making $60,000 a year and having to do a side club to get by,
Very
right?
True. Yep.
These guys are making solid six-figure incomes now, but you can't be in there slowing the room down, screwing around. You have to be mature enough to go in there, and you have to also be ready to not break. And what I mean by that is you're not going to win.
Right. Yeah. The biggest struggle I think they talk about is just getting in and actually wrestling with the guys and, and learning the room, but also like you're not going to get a takedown right away. So,
or it might take a year or two even. Right. Yeah. And they just want to know that you're coming in the room and you're still fighting, because the last thing they want their college guy doing is wasting time on a high school kid who breaks.
Waxed.
Right. Because then that's no good for that kid's practice.
Agreed. Yep. Correct. But both, because that other kid, if he's going to break, he's not getting anything out of it anyways. He's going to walk around campus depressed all week and the rest of the year. So right. I agree.
It's bad for both. You're spot on. Yeah,
I agree.
Yep. So it's the old saying, it's got to be mutually beneficial.
Yep. So when you're talking about the early commitment, I mean, so you said that there's a benefit. Is there a payout for that for a kid? They stick through it, they say I'm gonna, and then they get to signing day, they stay with them. Is there a financial benefit?
Well, what I'll tell you is 95% of college coaches are super honest guys, right? And their reputation and their integrity is untouchable. And what they'll usually tell a kid is like, look, if you come in at this, we guarantee this.
Okay.
And if in the next couple of years you do more and more, we can give you more, right? But the cool part is they usually won't say, but we're going backwards. It's usually like, this is the number and it can go up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you're a blue chipper, if you like that term or not, but if you're one of the top tier recruits, they might be able to give you a little extra, because by you coming in, maybe it helps them. Most good kids want to be on teams with other good guys, right? And so if your name can help draw in another good guy, that might be worth an extra 5 or 10% to a school.
Something to be said about how many butts it puts in the seats too. People that want to come watch someone like that,
Yeah, especially if you're, in-state people want to be able to see some in-state kids.
Yeah. By all means. Yeah, we're definitely watching some of these guys this year. That's for sure. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, if you're in Wisconsin or Minnesota, you want to be able to go pull out for the Badgers or Minnesota and be able to see some in-state kids wrestling for your in-state college, right?
Right.
So sometimes it's a benefit for these colleges just to get a guy a little early, just so they can keep that in-state talent home, because then they know what they have to go out of state to go find.
And I think, to me, it used to be different to me. I think back in the day, obviously like you said, Wisconsin is a very academic driven school. So you're not going to see a ton of kids trying to go play football there and stuff like that, because they're going to be selective. I think I've noticed that there's a lot more now because of where the wrestling programs themselves, like you mentioned, the clubs and the high schools alone, because of the coaches they have now, that, a lot of there's some brain fart in here. A lot of what the hell I was saying. A lot of kids are not kids, but a lot of schools are bringing in-state kids. A lot of them. I'm noticing,
I think
especially
it's always
here.
been that. It's always been that way to a degree.
Yeah.
I think when you look at in-state, so you and I talked about this a little bit, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, in your studio there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have a pen and a paper, but
I have
or
a phone that has
maybe a calculator.
Sticks this here.
Yeah. So let's just use some generals, right?
Okay.
And see if it makes sense for some kids.
Yep.
That finances are important when you go to college. I mean, dude, these colleges, every one of them, it's unfortunate where the prices have gone.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just 10 years ago, the prices were half. So college, and I know I don't want to turn this into a political conversation.
No, right.
But
it has
I know
a lot to do with it.
Really upset. I know a lot of people are really upset with that reimbursement that the college kids are getting right now. That I also look at that and say, 10 years ago, you could have went to college for half that price. So something's got to get figured out. I don't know that a bonus or a relief is the right answer. What has to happen is they need to go into these colleges and figure out a way to manage costs.
Yeah.
Right. And most of the costs aren't coming from professors or better classes. It's cool new buildings that really don't academically change a whole lot.
Yeah. New facilities and stuff.
And they're cool. They're nice. But
right.
What does it change?
Yep.
So if we take a look at out of state and in-state, and here's what every in-state college knows. So this is not a slight to any college, right? And I've heard, because you and I live in Wisconsin and Minnesota, most of the kids we hear from are Minnesota, Wisconsin kids.
Yep.
So one of the things I hear from a lot of kids is they don't like the offer that they got from their in-state college.
Okay. Yep.
And they feel like the other college gave them a better offer. Mm-hmm. Well, of course they did, because let's look at out-of-state and in-state tuition.
Yep.
Okay. So your average out-of-state tuition that I've researched and that I found is between 38 and 40,000.
Okay, I'll just put 40.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll go 40 just for a nice round number.
Yep.
Okay. And your in-state tuition on the average is about 26 to 28 grand. So we'll call it 27 grand.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So if you go 27 grand and you were to get a 20% scholarship,
mm-hmm.
I believe that's $5,600 off of the in-state number.
Divided by, you said how much percent?
20%.
Yep. 20. I only need that 20. Yep. Okay. Yep. You're right.
Right. So that'd be $22,000 and change, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now if you go to an out-of-state school.
Yep.
Right. And the tuition is 40 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And they offer you a 45% scholarship, which sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What is 55% of 40 grand?
55% of 40 grand or 45% of 40 grand?
Well, it'd be 45% off, right? So you'd still have to pay 55%.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm dividing by the wrong number here. I don't know. Oh, that's Wisconsin education.
55%.
What's that?
Yep. Just take 40,000 times 55%.
Yep.
And what's that number?
That's not just times 22.
22,000. So the exact same offer as your in-state 20% offer.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the percentage is. At the end of the day, it's what's it costing you.
Yep. The overall versus the percentage. Yeah. Yep. I totally get what you're saying.
So typically an in-state offer of, I'm just using 20 because that's the new rule.
Yep.
Right. If an in-state school gives you a 30% offer, it's going to be almost impossible for an out-of-state school to match the dollars.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. That's a no-brainer alone. Yeah. So that makes sense.
Right.
And so does that mean that is that something that's been done for years already and people don't recognize it? Or is that something they brought around?
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's been going on for a long, long time.
And people just don't pay attention
which
to
is also why it's so important to keep your in-state talent at home.
Yep. I agree.
Right?
I agree totally.
Right.
Yep.
And that's, with all the advantages of the internet and whatnot, we're seeing kids go to more colleges everywhere now. Like they're not just saying, I got to go to Minnesota or Wisconsin.
Yep.
Like I'll go to Cal Poly, I'll go to Hofstra, I'll go to wherever.
Yep.
Right.
Bucknell. Yeah.
Bucknell, because now there's more options.
Yep.
Right. And then you'll see a lot of times on the old school forums, the old as I like to say, the old grumpy white guys.
Yeah.
You know, they get really pissed at the kids because they know their team, their locals team, can't be good without getting all those kids at 20 and 30%, because that saves money to go get that elite 1 or 2 hammers
Sure. Yep.
at the bigger scholarship to bring in.
Yep. Correct.
And that's how you get a great team. So if you can't keep your in-state kids home, it makes it really tough.
Yeah. And so far, I think I've noticed that Parkside's doing a really good job at it. As far as keeping in-state, I mean, Nick Becker's a really good coach. Also, you know, an Askren kid, but the other thing too is noticing, well, you know, Bono, obviously he's had his events here. He's had an event out in California, so you noticed a couple kids signing from Poway. But yeah, I do notice a lot more now. Not only just the coaches, but the kids are really keeping their eyes peeled on the other options that are available. And I think there's an education out there that's lacking for parents that they really need to get, as far as don't just, you know, there's 5 different options that you gave that should weigh in.
But at the same token, if you're an in-state kid, let's say you're a future 133 pounder, right? And you've got a freshman who's got potentially 5 years of eligibility left, and he's ranked number 5 in the country, and he's beating his backup by 1 point in the wrestle-off, and then there's another great kid. You've got to look at that and say, you know, my opportunity there is limited, so you may have to look out of state. So I think it's a case-by-case situation, and the fans got to recognize that too sometimes too. Like a great example was in Minnesota. Daniel Kirkfleet wanted to be a Gopher. That's where he wanted to go. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you know, his sophomore year he committed really early. Yep. And at the time he was 6'2", 195-ish. Okay. And they thought, okay, Gable will be the heavyweight and I'll be the 197 pounder. And what a dynamic combo that would be. Right. Man. Well, what Greg didn't count on was going to be 6'4" and 240 shredded. Right. Yep. And Gable being the best wrestler in the world. Planet. And Kirkfleet being right behind him. Yep. Oh, I've seen him. Yeah. I mean, well, not too many schools would not want Kirkfleet on their team. Right. Exactly. Right. And so the fans understood that one to a degree, right? And they still like to bring it up whenever they're frustrated why you didn't keep in-state talent in-state, right? Yeah. And you know, we heard about it a lot when Mark Hall went to Penn State and chose, but then, you know, for a lot of these guys, there, you know, there's personal choices like that. Yeah. But the variables. Not every kid's. Yeah, and sometimes there might be a really good in-state kid that is coming out that same year, and I've seen this happen too, where there was another kid in state, well, in high school was better than the other kid, went off to college and got better than the other kid, and then the fans are upset. Why didn't we get the other kid? Well, how do you know? He didn't want to come because he didn't think he could beat the other kid in the wrestle-off. They wanted both of them. Yeah. Right? They wanted both, and people just assumed that they didn't go after both. They did. They did. I mean, trust me, if there's good kids in the state, those colleges are going after them. Not every kid has the confidence to go there either, right? So, you know, like it takes a lot of confidence to want to go in the Big Ten. Oh, definitely. Right? Definitely. And just because you don't have to be in the Big Ten to win a national title. That's so, yes, that was the biggest thing, you know, like explaining to Liam, like, it's not just the Big Ten that's at the NCAAs, man. But that's really knowing what's a good fit for you too, right? Which is, that goes back to the head coach and their philosophy on training and how many hard competitions they go to. And so some kids love the grind of a Big Ten and some don't. And it doesn't mean you can't win a national title by not doing it. But some kids function better in the grind because they came out of Blair Academy or Wyoming Sem or you know, some high level high school that everything they did was a grind. That's what they know. That's what they like. Yep. Well, the grind's going to be starting on Monday, so hopefully we'll start seeing what's going to be coming out. When do you guys start your wrestling season? We have this ridiculous football thing going on right now, and he's doing good. The team my son is on is and we've made it to the semifinals. Minnesota has a state tournament where Wisconsin does levels. Minnesota has a state, so We play in the U.S. Bank this Thursday at 4:00.
Nice.
And then if we win that game, we have a bye week because the state tournament championship is usually on Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
But the Vikings, I think, play Detroit or somebody at home Thanksgiving Day. So it got postponed till December 3rd or 2nd or something.
Man,
like that.
you guys are still playing football out to December?
Very possible. And at Simley, which is a pretty good wrestling high school, I believe we have 6 or 7 of our wrestling starters are also starters on our football team. I think we have 9, potentially 9 of our starters are also playing football. So
start doing
that wipes out a good chunk of our team.
It sure does.
That's the fun thing though about being public school. Like even last 2 years ago when we wrapped up the season ranked number 2 in the nation.
Yeah. Yep.
Almost every kid on our wrestling team played another sport. And between that team right now, counting this year's commits, last year's commits, and that year, I want to say 5, 6, 7, 10. That was 10 Division I guys on that team that all played another sport.
What statistic of those guys actually played 2 sports in college?
Well, none. I mean, it's
so I don't.
Gavin's had some offers. Gavin's had some offers to do football and wrestle.
Sure.
But I know that's kind of a thing right now.
Yeah.
Ben Cooter down in Iowa did it. Big Jimmy, Jimmy Mullins out there did it. I think it's going to be a challenge for those guys. They're both such phenomenal athletes. They're both really good guys too. Jimmy and my son are pretty good buddies.
Yeah.
And they both have a shot, but the problem is they're both on really good football teams. And if you're on a really good football team, they play till January 1st every year in a bowl game. Right. And I don't know if a lot of people may not know this, but the wrestling season started a couple weeks ago.
So
for college,
so with that being said, now with the college recruited kid and let's say he's playing 2 sports and, obviously it opens the doors a little bit more for the kid, but now you have a college coach, football or wrestling, that's trying to vie for a kid. Is it the same school? Is that going to does that ever turn into a problem? I mean, I guess I'm just thinking hypothetically here, but you know what I'm saying?
Could be. I heard some rumors just with my own son.
Mm-hmm.
I heard some rumors that because he verbaled so early that the football coach knew who he was and may have had an interest in him, but that with him committing to the wrestling team so early, that it hurt his chances with the football team.
Sure.
So I don't know how true that is or not, but because I haven't heard that from the football coach. I heard it from somebody, but if that was true, and I do know like some of and I have a regret maybe that way of verbaling Gavin so early just because he loves football just as much as wrestling. And I think the early verbal for wrestling probably didn't help, especially with it all over his Twitter page and everything else, probably didn't help his college recruiting. He still ended up with 5 schools that were interested, 5 Division I schools
that's awesome
were interested in him, but it may have limited how many. And I do know when you see some of these kids that are verbaling later, a lot of them are 2-sport athletes and they don't want to they don't want to limit their options, right? And I think there's a really good wrestler, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't have permission, but there's a really good wrestler out of Wisconsin that I think really wants to see what his football and wrestling options are.
Sure.
Right. So I wouldn't expect to see a verbal from that wrestler anytime soon, just because, probably want this summer to get to some combines and and then make your decision after that.
I'll just ask one. Is it a big guy?
He's not small.
He's not small. Okay, there you go. Not
he goes
small
to a
guy.
Small school.
Yeah. Yep. Not small guy from Wisconsin. Just trying to keep his options open. But either way,
he's a big guy, but he goes to a small school.
Small school. Yeah. Yep. I know who you're talking about. I have that. But that. So with that being said,
I'm sure everybody does. But I just
nope. You're nice.
And I don't think. And you know what? What we're saying only helps him too because.
It's smart.
If any college coaches are listening to this, they better get on their game.
Yeah.
Because if they want them,
you're
not only just going to be competing with other wrestling coaches, but you may be competing with football coaches and vice versa.
Yep.
So if you want them, you better get to work.
Better jump on it. Better start driving north. It's cold up here.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I don't want to talk about everything now because I want to have you back on again. And plus, it's close to dinner time. Well, it's 3:30. I mean, I can smell beef upstairs right now. It's fantastic. But
Sure.
I don't want to waste it all in one conversation. So I'd like to have you come back on if you would.
Sure.
And we can talk about more stuff.
Do you feel like we got into the topics you wanted to get into, or?
Never. There's a lot to talk about. I think there's a lot to cover, as far as just kids kind of getting exposure. And that's why it's nice. I mean, so I'm not just talking to you because your kid's going through it. I mean, you're also in it. Like you talk to guys, you're talking to guys.
I'm at the board of Min USA Wrestling, and I'm also on the RTC board. Right. And then obviously, just knowing so many kids going through it personally and being at a powerhouse high school that puts out so many D1 wrestlers too, get to see it from that level. A lot. But before we wrap up, then, maybe I'd like just to kind of let kids know that might be listening, or dads more likely, right? Yep. I don't know how many kids listen to the podcast. I know Grayson Clark listens. Exercise. Yeah, I'd put your kids through an exercise, right? Yep. And especially for those sophomores that are getting ready or juniors that should be recruited right now. Yeah, is have them pick 20 schools. Okay, and first of all, you got to go on and register on the clearinghouse, the NCAA clearinghouse, right? You can do that as early as your freshman year.
Okay. I'm losing you. You've got some awesome internet, Jamie. I'm going to let you close out, and then I'll let you come back in again. This Jamie's got some sweet reception going on in his house. He tried blaming the show, but that's a load of hooey. I got great feed down here. Just sitting here. Liam left, by the way. Oh, hey, there's Jamie. Kinda, sorta. I don't have you in here. You showed up, but you're not talking yet. That's fine. But Jamie will come back. What I like to bring Jamie on for is just the deeper knowledge. Are you back? There you are.
There we go.
All right, there you go.
I was only kind of back. So first, get on as soon as you can and fill out your clearinghouse. Mm-hmm. Right. Things you're going to need for that is go through all your high school information, have your principal's email, phone number ready, your coach's phone number, your athletic director's phone number, email. Okay. And then you're going to give them also permission to start looking at transcripts. So the second you do that, at any given time, schools could start calling and asking for your transcripts. So you want to make sure, once you put your name in the hat, keep those grades up. Yep. Because that's what they're trying to see. Yeah. And then what I would do is give each one of your kids a project, right? And this is going to tell you as a parent, this is that first step in really listening to your kid. Yeah. Not them telling you what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. Give them a task. Give them 2 weeks. Yep. And say, I want you to go on the 10 colleges, Division I colleges that you have interest in, right? And fill out their recruiting page. Yep. Right. And you'll need the clearinghouse stuff. You'll need all the principal stuff because you got to fill that out on each and every one. Awesome. Then go through and fill out 7 D2 schools and 3 D3 schools. Okay. And if they're not willing to do the D2 or the D3 schools, I don't know how much they really love wrestling. Yep. Agreed. Right. Agreed. And that'll tell you like, hey, I really just want to wrestle. Yeah. Right. Yep. And also if they don't want to do what it takes to fill those out and be proactive and learn to advocate for themselves, they're also telling you as a parent, I'm not sure I really want to do this. I agree. So it's a great lesson for the parent and the athlete. Totally agree. To go through. Yep. Yep. I totally agree. And that's like that whole story back with Keaton Cleaver. I mean, and Liam was 10, 11. I told him, I said, you don't have to think about this. Just think about think of your favorite colors. Find schools that have some colors you like and go off of that because you're 11. You don't need to worry about that. And obviously we're Iowa fans, all that other stuff, but we're really starting to come into a different age and kind of a transition of, we're not all smash and grab. We got to really think about this and be smarter about your direction that you want to take. So that's actually awesome to think, because I personally didn't know about that NCAA portal as far as filling out information. So that way the coaches then have just access to your information, can find out, they can get transcripts if you want to, because you're giving them permission. I think that's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's a wise idea. You got to Google it. It's called the NCAA clearinghouse, right? Okay. Yep. And be careful when you do it, because there's going to be recruiting sites that kind of pop up and want you to pay. This has a very nominal fee to it. It's like $30 to $60 or something like that. I can't remember what it is. Right? We filled it out a few years back, but it's a one-time fee. It's not a service, right? And and all you're trying to get out of it is your NCAA clearinghouse number.
Yep.
So that you can go on the other starts. And if you think that blue chippers and top tier recruits are sitting back waiting for colleges to call them, they're not.
Nope.
They know that every good kid in the country also wants to go to the same colleges.
Yeah.
They're being proactive.
They're selling themselves.
They're reaching out to coaches. You have to advocate for yourself.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
Totally.
Right? This isn't football. The doorbell is not going to be ringing with coaches knocking at your door like Johnny Be Good.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
This is small coaching staffs with small budgets.
Yep.
That are recruiting.
Well, and it's a good point you bring up too, as far as the what these coaches have time. If you guys don't hear from a coach right away, yes, be proactive and reach out, but also understand that, especially right now, season just started. So if they're not getting back to you, they're busy, man. Like they're not just like, screw that kid. Some of them just like, they just don't have the time sometimes, especially once season kicks off.
And Brad, you're bringing up a great point. I hear kids bring that up all the time. Part of that going dark conversation, right?
Yep.
You got to understand they have their visits that they have lined up. So those are 5-6 weekends that they have to be at the college, not home with their wife and kids.
Yep.
Right. Most of these guys are married with kids or at that age or grandkids even. Right.
Right.
They've got to go out and meet recruits that they're trying to recruit.
Yep.
Right. Then if they have an RTC, they might have competitors competing overseas and they've got to go over there for 10-20 days at a crack to train their overseas athletes if they have an RTC.
That's right.
Right. And then they have their incoming freshmen that come in like in late August.
Yep.
And they have to make sure that for the first 30 days they know how to open up a can of tuna and get to the classroom. Right. So
that's right.
That first 30 days. And then about that time is when the football games start kicking in. And that's when they want all their recruits to all their home games.
Yep.
Right. Is usually the recruiting weekends. Right.
Yep.
So they have these insane schedules. And so if you're not putting in the work, and they reach out to you 3-4 times and they don't hear anything back, they're assuming you're not interested.
Because here's the thing is that okay, it's don't be selfish, and realize that they do have, jobs going on, things like that. There's 5, probably 6, maybe 7 other kids that they're trying to keep track of. But at the other time though, too, it's one of those things where if you contact them and they'd forgotten to, that's going to show them honestly that, oh man, I forgot. And that's right. This kid reminded me. That's perfect. That sticks out. I mean, it sticks out as a parent when your kid starts to do that stuff.
I'm on the RTC board, so I had some inside information on my son's recruiting process, right?
Sure.
And there was other hammers at his same weight. Shoot, there's other hammers at his same weight right now that they're interested in.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, I knew that going into it that, hey, we want Gavin. I hope he's locked in. Yeah. And, if it gets back to you, yes, we are also trying to recruit this kid. Yeah. Like they were because of our relationship, they were very honest about it. So if you're a really good kid and let's say you weigh 165-ish and there's a need at that school at 165, you're not the only kid they're talking to.
Yep. Right. Yep. Exactly. And even the year before that, they could have been vetting another kid and still haven't gotten him. Maybe they want him to transfer. Hey, come on over.
They could be talking to a kid that's in the portal. They can't talk to you unless you're in the portal.
Correct.
Right? But they could be talking to you. Who knows who they're talking to, right? But they're not just sitting around if they have a weakness on the team. But I guess we suck at that way, right? They're addressing it.
So give them a minute, let them get back to you. But like Jamie said, be proactive because it is hard now, especially with the way that the wrestling field looks. I mean, it's not slim pickings anymore, man. There's a lot of good kids out there that are filling weights.
Yeah, you're only dealing. You got 10,000 plus high school wrestling teams.
Yeah,
right. You only have 70 some Division I teams. That number goes up and down every year, somewhere between 70 and 80, right?
Yep.
And then out of that, 25% of them don't even offer 9.9 scholarships. So if you're trying to get a scholarship, I would advise you to get to their prospect camps, get to the RTC practices and make a bond with these guys.
Put yourself out there.
A lot of times. And then get yourself to many big events, right?
Yep.
If you're just hoping that you have a great Fargo, and let's say like your son's blessed, he goes to Kakana, so he goes to a couple really hard in season tournaments, right? So he may get some opportunities at the Cheesehead or the Christmas or a couple others that you guys go to.
Yep.
But if you're not on a team with a hard schedule and you're just hoping that it happens at the Fargo, what if you're sick that day? What if you tweaked your knee? Get to some other big events and be seen. And I know some kids that got recruited There's a kid out of O'Connell Falls that Mitch Friedman wrestled up at North Dakota.
Yep. Correct. Yep.
He got recruited by North Dakota because he lost to a kid that they were trying to recruit by 1 point. And that kid opted to go to another school. And they're like, well, what about the Friedman kid? He almost beat him.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah,
sometimes you don't even have to win to get recruited.
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't, because someone gets their eyes open to you. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So
Nice.
Get to those Super 32s, get to the fall grapplers, get to the preseason,
Yep.
Tournaments. But don't just hedge it on one big that's too much stress.
Oh my God. Yeah. That was one thing we thought about, and because you don't want to kill a kid before the season starts. But that was the one thing we thought about. And it was like, we'd already been doing Super 32 for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is already. And we started looking at, because to me, 4 is a nice round number, right? But the problem is all 4 of them are in October. Yep. So we got preseason nationals.
I know it's tough.
Super 32. We got journeyman, and then we got I think there's one other one we go to, but it's tough. But that's it.
You could pick 2 of those.
Yeah,
you could pick 2 of those.
Yep.
And then let's say you do really well at your state tournament.
Yep.
And then you also get to Fargo.
Yep.
Right. Or the U.S. Open. Right.
Yep. Correct.
Or World Trials.
UWWs.
Right?
Yep.
And UWW's probably carries more weight
it does.
for sophomores coming out than Fargo, to be honest, right?
Yep.
It's just because you're about to make that world team. But get to those events. It's not always about winning, but it's about just having it's like it's hard to get recruited in football if you don't go to the combines.
It could be your breakout,
Right. But when you go to the combines, the football teams know you're committed to playing football.
Yep.
When you go to these tournaments, they know you want to wrestle.
Yes.
At the next level, right? So you're going to get on their radar.
And that's where a lot of the rankings, as far as guys who do rankings here, are really starting to put things. It's not just state titles anymore. It's what are you doing at the national level and the world level?
It's almost impossible to do it at a state title, right?
Correct.
I'm going to pick on Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin, right? But I'm going to pick on Wisconsin a little bit because sometimes that state tournament over the last few years has been a little orchestrated.
Yeah.
Right. And and when you have a really talented, dominant club in your state, and they can push guys to different weights to ensure everyone wins a state title, that becomes an unrecruitable tournament.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because if every D1 prospect is at a different weight class.
Yeah. Whereas,
how do you know?
Yeah.
Right?
How do you know? Exactly.
Like last year in season, in the last year and a half, if you're on a hard schedule, like my son, who's been lucky enough to make a couple world teams, he wrestled 4 world team members.
Yeah.
Last year in season. That's a different kind of schedule. Also, 3 years ago, when he lost his state title, he lost his state title in the finals by a couple points to a kid he beat at sections the week before.
Yeah.
But his name is Bennett Berge, who's wrestling at South Dakota State now, who just took a silver medal in the world. So that bracket meant something.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And they went to the same private club as well.
Mm-hmm.
However, when your teams are real deep, like we have over in Minnesota, you can't avoid your buddy from your favorite, ABC wrestling club. Right.
Yep.
Because if you're on a team with 14, 15 legit dudes on it, you got to wrestle where that team needs you. So some state tournaments are more recruitable than others.
Yep.
And it really depends on the depth of the top 10 teams in that state, because if you've got 10 really good teams, then nobody can avoid each other.
Correct. Yes.
If you only have 2 or 3 loaded teams, then everybody can avoid each other.
Yep. Yeah. Sparsity. And I think that just comes with the demographics too, as far as who's paying attention.
Right.
Like, wrestling, we play football here. So that's kind of what
So
we run into
my
here.
ultimate point is to any dads that are listening to this, don't pin your hopes on your high school wrestling season.
Yep. Right.
Yep. And don't pin your hopes to one tournament. That's too much stress.
A lot.
And kids have good days and bad days.
Yep. Totally.
And you hear people too go, oh, why is that kid still ranked? He's taking these losses. Well, that kid's put himself on the line 100 times.
That's exactly it.
He took some losses, but he's also got 20 huge wins.
I mean, that's the biggest reason. I mean, honestly, why as a freshman, Liam got ranked in general, because he's doing those tournaments and things like that in the state. He's not nationally ranked, but
that's how you start. That's how you start, right? You got to start with your state rankings, and then they pay attention. But Liam's doing all the right things. He's getting to the right tournaments. One thing I'll tell like upperclassmen too. Okay, two things two things I'll say that are derogatory. Okay.
Yep.
And I don't mean them to be an ass, but they are what they
is
are.
what it is. Yeah.
No one's recruiting freshmen yet. They don't even know if they're going to stick it out yet.
Right.
I don't care how good they are.
Yep.
Right. They could be, doesn't mean they're not paying attention to them.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, you don't even know if they're going to you don't even know if they're going to stick it out till they're a senior. Right.
Yeah.
Every dad's like, oh, my kid will stick it out for sure. Well, we'll
maybe.
See, right. We don't know until they do it. Right.
Yep.
And if you're an upperclassman, not an underclassman,
yep.
right? Because at Fargo, 106 is a killer ass weight class.
Yes.
It's tough as nails,
yep.
right?
Yep.
But if you are trying to get recruited and you weigh 106 or 113 at national tournaments, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They're not watching those matches. They need to know, they need to see what you're wrestling like against guys who are going to be 26 pounders, not kids, right?
Yep.
So
correct.
When you get to those tournaments, don't cut your way out of getting recruited either, which maybe means you got to hit that weight room a little bit, which if you're not willing to do that, maybe means, you know, you're not all that interested.
Don't chase the title, chase your goal.
Yeah. But you know, the other last thing I'll leave you with is the bigger you are, the more scholarship money there is. Right. And get big, get strong.
Yeah.
Right. Now 125 gets big scholarship money.
Yep.
But your biggest scholarship money comes in those upper bigger weights because they're you know harder to find. The toughest scholarship money is between 133 and 165 because every college on earth has 4 to 5 studs at every one of those weights.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
I'm glad Liam's going to climb his way out.
Yeah, I mean 65, 74, you start getting out of the noise a little bit.
Yeah.
But at 149 and 157 in most college wrestling rooms, there's just a crap load of talent.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yep.
You know, it's just
not
deep,
just guys, it's
right?
talent. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
You know, where you go look at some of these schedule or some of these rosters, sometimes they only have a couple 197 pounders and a couple heavies. A lot of schools can only find one 125 pounder.
Yeah. I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly.
So those are going to be the bookends. It's just like high school. If you have really good bookends.
Yep.
If you're loaded from 106 to 120 and you got an 84 through heavyweight that can pin, you're probably going to win every duel.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. College isn't any different. If your bookends are good,
yeah,
your team's probably going to be pretty solid.
Nice. Well, I'm going to leave us on that.
Yes, sir.
Because I am actually talking to Lucas Stelt. Funny that we mentioned him earlier, but I'm going to let you go. I appreciate your time.
How about a name drop for Lucas in your first interview? Huh?
What's that? Oh, my first one
name earlier in the interview.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I dropped it then, and now I'm going to drop it now. But I have to get ready for him too. But I appreciate your time.
He's going to curse more than me, so
that's fine. That's what. Hey, you should. It's fine. Everybody needs to be who they are on here. That's what matters. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate you, Jamie. I hope you listen more, and I hope you come back on because I love.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
You bet. Take it easy.
You bet. Yep. Bye.
All of our episodes are brought to you by Appleton Tattoo, located at 117 South Appleton Street in Appleton, Wisconsin, right off the main drag on College Avenue. You can't miss them. I've had some work done. I have a Celtic cross that covers my back that was done by Jason. We're not done yet. Jason Winans and crew, the artists that he have there, those guys are the best in the Fox Valley. They are definitely one to go to if it's something that you've just been kind of throwing around. They'll make you feel comfortable. It's a very clean environment, very nice crew, and very willing to get done whatever you need done when you need it done. You can message them on Facebook. I know they're on Facebook. You can give them a call at 920-604-8289 and get in touch with Jason Winans and crew at Appleton Tattoo, located again in Appleton, Wisconsin at 117 South Appleton Street, right in Appleton. Very flexible hours, great crew, clean environment again. I would not send you anywhere else except for these guys. Appleton Tattoo.